Hi. So Murray asked me to spend a very brief amount of time, like 5 minutes, introducing you to Woodland Biofuels. And it's a great example because Woodland, I believe, is really a really nice manifestation of the impact of BIC, SCA, and the investment side, and the assets associated with the Sarnia cluster. They really show up in the Woodland pilot demonstration unit that we've got here in Sarnia. So, bottom line about Woodland, it's a pretty simple business. It's all technology based in terms of a thermochemical process for making ethanol from the carbon sources. And it results in a cost about half of gasoline on a gallon basis. Obviously, gasoline has a higher fuel value, so it's a little bit more like 80% of the cost. But the bottom line is you're a low-cost producer in a huge commodity market. So it takes out a lot of risk associated with the new venture. The company started with their technology back in about 2000. They've raised about $30 million to date, a portion of which is the SCA contribution, which was really fundamental to the business getting to a point of being able to build the demonstration unit here in Sarnia. It's a neat business model in that it can convert all forms of non-food ag products, including the waste materials, into ethanol. So it's very independent of the different sources. The business model is starting with the easiest of those, which we believe is wood chips, just because of the materials handling side. Just from a brief technology overview, it would take multiple different kinds of feedstock. It goes through a gasification process, which basically breaks free all the carbon, and then you've got a synthetic gas. From there, you move through a series of catalytic reactions that results ultimately in your fuel ethanol. The business has been designed, and the process is really the core around lowest cost. So it maximizes the yield on that carbon, and it does it, pretty cleanly. Has lots of attributes in that regard. As I said, feedstock flexibility is a big component because when we're dealing with the natural feedstocks, there's usually limited supply, and wherever you're locating facilities, or limited economic supply, and so we need to move to different places. But it also has a nice growth, cost reduction curve associated with the maturity of the company as you move into lower and lower cost feedstocks with more and more experience. But it's from the wood byproducts and cellulose-rich products like cardboard, paper, and municipal solid waste over to ag waste as well. Woodland did a good job of getting a lot of third-party credibility at each step of the way. The founders would more describe it as, a heck of a lot of work trying to prove to different people why this will work. But as a result, has assembled a really good group of partners and investors all through the process. I joined to help them out just a couple years ago. At the time when the demonstration plant was done, and the SCA side of things was a bit behind them, and moving on to their broader commercialization. Because the way this business makes money is by chunking out these $150 million plants as rapidly as possible. Because you've got a low-cost position in a commodity market, so basically you just generate cash as fast as you can, and very nice returns on investment on each of the plants. So just kind of a summary slide on Woodland, to stay within my 5 minutes here, is there's a bunch of strengths, and I give Greg Nuttall, who is the CEO, a lot of credit for how he has played his way through this, assembling the key people to de-risk, assembling the key partners to de-risk, and then proving that each of the different steps along the way have been de-risked. And so real strong leadership, low-cost process, as I said. The de-risking comment is one that's kind of expanded here in these bullets around each of those different steps. It is, the core of this is the process, and it's the IP is well protected. There's a U.S. patent for syngas to ethanol, actually regardless of the syngas source. So it doesn't have to be, waste. It can be natural gas. which is a really powerful patent to have. The focus right now is on waste and move forward from there. The business model is quite scalable because you're building a plant that doesn't have to have different features and benefits as you move to different locations where the wood sources are or the feedstock sources are. So the scale rate should be really fast associated with it, and the operability should be able to be, supported in a leveraged way rather than having to have, really great people at each site location trying to figure out how to keep that particular unit running. And lastly, it has relatively low capital cost requirements associated with this. It's actually would be positioned as the lowest, cost per gallon capital of all the folks who are in play right now. And so that's a real plus to it. So the current status is there's a demonstration plant over at the Sarnia Research Park, the Western Research Park in Sarnia. And it's been now about a year since it was originally constructed. It's been operated at each of the unit levels. It's had all sorts of interesting mechanical problems associated with running a pretty complex chemical plant. But I say that because the other side of it is hadn't had any chemical problems in terms of the reactions, in terms of the indications of yield at a unit level against what they could be at an optimized process level. And so it's been running pretty well. The next goal is to run continuously for 700 to 1,000 hours, at which time we'll be in a position that the credibility milestones have been met to allow to move on to the $150 million raise. So that's Woodland.